The first thing that must die when you have zero support is the need for approval. Approval is a drug. Subtle, socially rewarded, and deeply addictive. It feels harmless because it's dressed up as humility, teamwork, and being reasonable. But Machiavelli saw it clearly. The desire to be liked is one of the most efficient tools of control. When you rely on approval, you outsource your judgment. You hesitate before acting. You explain instead of deciding. You soften decisions to avoid backlash. And in doing so, you weaken yourself. Machiavelli warned that people who seek validation will always be led by those who withhold it. If someone's silence can make you doubt yourself, they own you. If their praise can energize you, they command you. This is why leaders who depend on applause rarely last. They become performers, not strategists. With zero support, approval is unavailable by default, and that is not a disadvantage. It is an advantage disguised as isolation. When no one is clapping, you stop performing. When no one is watching, you start refining. When no one agrees, you are forced to think. This is where independence is born. You begin making decisions based on outcome, not optics. You stop asking, "How will this look?" and start asking, "Will this work?" That shift alone separates those who drift from those who rise. Machiavelli believed that leaders who survive early isolation develop an internal compass. They don't panic when misunderstood. They don't chase consensus. They don't confuse noise with truth. They move anyway. At first, this feels uncomfortable. You will second-guess yourself. You will wonder if you're wrong because no one is confirming you're right. But over time, something changes. You begin trusting your own reasoning because it's the only thing consistently available. And once you stop needing approval, manipulation loses its power. Next, we'll look at how isolation forces you to build discipline and why discipline, not motivation, is the real engine of success when support is zero. When support disappears, motivation collapses shortly after, and that's where most people quit. Motivation is social. It feeds on encouragement, recognition, and momentum created by others. Remove those inputs and motivation becomes unreliable. Machiavelli understood this and never built strategy around feelings. He built it around discipline. Discipline does not care if anyone believes in you. With zero support, discipline becomes non-negotiable. There is no external pressure to keep going, no accountability except the one you impose on yourself. That solitude is uncomfortable, but it is also transformative. Because discipline replaces hope with structure. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop needing confidence before action. You stop negotiating with your emotions. You do the work because it must be done. Machiavelli believed that fortune favors those who prepare relentlessly, not those who feel inspired. When resources are limited and all eyes are absent, consistency becomes your weapon. Small actions repeated daily compound into advantage. Isolation sharpens this process. You begin to notice patterns. You become efficient with time. You cut unnecessary movement. Every wasted hour costs more when you have no backup. That pressure forces focus. This is also where identity begins to change. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying and start seeing yourself as someone responsible. Responsible for outcomes. Responsible for progress. Responsible for failure. That responsibility hardens you. People who rise without support develop a different relationship with effort. They don't romanticize struggle, but they don't fear it either. Struggle becomes normal. Resistance becomes expected. And once effort is normalized, quitting becomes irrational. Next, we'll talk about how having no allies forces you to become strategically patient and why patience, when combined with discipline, is more powerful than speed or aggression ever will be. When you have no support, impatience becomes your greatest enemy. Without allies, every move costs more. Every mistake is amplified. There is no one to absorb risk for you. Machiavelli understood this and advised restraint not as weakness, but as strategic patience. People with support can afford speed. People without support must master timing. This is where many fail. They rush outcomes to escape isolation. They make visible moves too early. They announce plans before they're ready. And in doing so, they expose themselves before they are strong enough to defend their position. Machiavelli warned that those who move too quickly invite opposition before they have leverage. When you are alone, exposure is dangerous. Quiet progress is protection. With zero support, patience becomes a survival skill. You learn to build privately. You test ideas silently. You refine before revealing. You stop broadcasting effort and start investing it. This solitude forces observation. You begin studying systems, people, and patterns with a level of clarity that noise would have disrupted. You see how power actually moves, not how it's talked about. You notice who rises quietly and who burns out loudly. Patience also protects you emotionally. When no one is cheering, you stop measuring success by recognition. You measure it by position, by competence, by readiness. This delays gratification, but it deepens control. Machiavelli believed that premature visibility is often fatal. Those who survive isolation emerge not desperate, but prepared. When they finally step into the open, they do so with stability, not hunger. Next, we'll talk about the most important outcome of succeeding with zero support. Why those who rise alone are the hardest to control once they've made it, and why that independence is the ultimate advantage. The final result of succeeding with zero support is something few people ever achieve: uncontrollable independence. When you rise without help, you no longer fear withdrawal. You are immune to abandonment, indifference, and silence because you are built inside them. Machiavelli understood that those who survive isolation cannot be easily threatened. They do not bend for approval, favors, or protection because none of those were part of their ascent. This is the ultimate advantage. You don't panic when support fades. You don't collapse when alliances shift. You don't compromise principles to stay included. You've already proven you can stand alone. People who succeed with backing often become dependent on it. They need teams, validation, resources, and consensus to function. Remove those and they unravel. But those who rose unsupported develop internal authority. Their confidence is quiet, grounded, and difficult to shake. Machiavelli believed the strongest leaders were those who owed nothing to anyone. Gratitude can exist, but dependence cannot. The moment someone believes they made you, they believe they can unmake you. That is never true for someone who climbed alone. When success finally arrives, something strange happens. The same people who ignored you begin offering support, advice, loyalty, praise. But you see it clearly now. Support follows strength, not the other way around. And you no longer need it. You choose alliances instead of chasing them. You accept help without relying on it. You lead without fear of being left behind. Zero support did not break you. It disciplined you. It sharpened you. It freed you. Machiavelli's lesson is simple but unforgiving. If you can survive alone, you can never be controlled. And once you reach that point, success is no longer something you chase. It becomes something you command. There is one final transformation that happens when you succeed with zero support, and it's the one no one warns you about. You stop needing to be understood. Machiavelli knew that the loneliest people are often the most dangerous, not because they are bitter, but because they are free from explanation. When you build yourself without witnesses, you no longer feel compelled to justify your choices, defend your pace, or translate your vision into language others can digest. You act. You adjust. You advance, silently. This is where real power settles in, not the loud kind, not the performative kind, but the kind rooted in self-trust. You don't ask if you're allowed. You don't wait for consensus. You don't flinch when misunderstood. because misunderstanding didn't stop you before. Machiavelli believed that those who rely on themselves develop an internal authority stronger than any external title. Their confidence isn't borrowed from success, it precedes it, and that makes them impossible to intimidate. At this stage, success no longer feels like escape. It feels like confirmation. Confirmation that you were right to keep going, right to endure silence, right to build when no one was watching. You don't resent the lack of support anymore. You recognize it as the furnace that shaped you. Without it, you might have become dependent, distracted, or compromised. Instead, you became precise. And here is the quiet truth. Once you've learned to move without support, you never truly go back. Even when allies appear, even when recognition comes, even when doors open, you remain internally alone. Not isolated, independent. That independence is what Machiavelli respected above all else. Because a person who does not need saving cannot be owned, threatened, or steered. They don't beg history to be kind to them. They write it themselves.